Shana Tova, everyone. If you haven't acquired a seat, please acquire a seat because the folks on Zoom are already sitting. They're just waiting for us. So welcome, and on behalf of the entire Machar community, Shana Tova, and welcome to our Kol Nidre service for 2023 as we take our first steps into Yom Kippur. Some of us are joining online, some of us are here in person. However you're joining us, whether you are a member or you're visiting, or you just happen to be walking by and thought, I don't know, Kol Nidre seems like a gas. I don't know who thinks that. Even rabbis don't think that. However you got here, welcome. If we haven't gotten a chance to talk, I hope that we'll be able to do so. And if we don't manage to connect up, you can always email me at rabbi@machar.org. And we'll go ahead and introduce our choir. So the choir's members are Joanna Pratt, Joy Markowitz, Miriam Markowitz, Keith Campbell-Rosen, Misha Clive, Joyce Rosenthal, and Greg Greisa, and they are accompanied on piano by Harry Appelman. And we have three readers tonight, Akiva Lieberman, Marty David, and David Abramson, in no respective order to the way they're coming up. Before we continue, if you're physically in the room, I know you have a phone, and I know you won't turn it off, but go ahead and flip it to silent. If you have an iPhone, it's a little tab on the side of your phone, so there's really like no excuse. You don't want to be the person whose phone rings during Yom Kippur, can you imagine? For those joining us online, the liturgy for today is on Machar's website. I'm going to move through the steps at a moderate pace. Go to www.machar.org. Go ahead. Once you get there, on the upper right is a menu that's named Holidays. Put your mouse on that. You'll see an option for Yom Kippur comes down. Click that. Scroll to the bottom of the page, and you will find a file named Machar Kol Nidre Liturgy 2019. I know it says 2019, but that's the book we have in front of us today. For those who are in person, the lyrics are arranged in a short hymnal in the back behind a tab, and I'll call out the song number, look for the song number. The number appears next to the title. Don't worry about page numbers, that won't work for you. It requires a little flipping back and forth, but it's also better non-use of trees. If you're joining us online, copyright law being what it is, we don't have the sheet music online for you. I don't think Machar wants to get sued by anybody, so
going on?
I apologize for the unavailability of that material. If you are in the room physically, we do have some security measures in place because the world is what it is. There are certain doors we'd like you not to go through, so please avoid going out the back doors, the side door, just that one hallway that's over that way. There are emergency exits all around in the event of a fire or something like that. We have a police officer on site, and if you're looking for the restrooms, there's a couple of different options, and they're all out in that hall, so there's literally no reason to go that way anyway, unless you just like being in the dark, in which case you can go the other way for that too. A final note before we begin in earnest, that the high holidays are about reconciliation, not just between people, but within each of us. And you're gonna spend time and you're gonna get distracted and you're gonna lose count of your page, but you'll also lose track of what's going on around you. And I just wanna tell you that that's fine. It's okay to be distracted. It's okay to be the person in the room who says, how many pages we got left? I'm gonna help you. There's 18 pages in this thing. So you'll always know. It can never go past 18. You'll be good. But if you get distracted, that's fine. Come back when you can. I'll occasionally call out a page number, particularly is helpful for the folks online because, they don't have sheets of paper and page numbers are harder to see when you're on a PDF. And having said all of that, I'd like to invite up our first reader, Akiva Lieberman.
Is this on?
It is. She'll get the levels. So we'll start our service tonight on page 1, which is where a lot of books start, but not all of them, right? Because they start at like 2 or 3 or Roman numeral something. So we'll start with Hine Matov, and we're doing number 11, right? The version number 2? Yeah, so it's number 11 in your hymnal. Behold, how good and pleasant it is for people to dwell together in unity. As evening casts its shadows over the earth, ushering in this most significant day, our thoughts join with those of other Jews throughout the world.
We put aside petty concerns and vain desires. We ask ourselves important questions. What is our life, and of what avail is our strength? What is our wealth, and to what purpose our power? How can we control the course of our lives? What is our future?
On this cold Nidre night, bound by the long memories of our people, we stand united with generations past. Recalling the lives of our forebears, we are stripped of pretense and revealed in all our vulnerability. Amid the uncertainties of life, we seek peace within ourselves and with other people.
Na'ez Ziv Yom HaKippurim. Na'ez Ziv Yom HaKippurim. How wonderful is the glory of Yom Kippur. Na'ez Ziv HaOlam. Na'ez Ziv HaOlam. How wonderful is the splendor of the world. Na'eh Tiferet HaAdam. Radiant is the glory of mankind. Na'eh Tiferet HaChaim. Na'eh Tiferet HaChaim. How beautiful is the glory of life. In the year to come, may we succeed in examining our lives and in living with our realities.
The airflow's a little problematic today, so we've got some candles. Air conditioning is good, but you know, things happen. Or zarua latzadikim uliyeshre lev simcha. Or zarua latzadikim uliyeshre lev simcha. Light is sown for the righteous, and joy for the just in heart.
Let us celebrate the light of the candles.
They burn for us. They reflect the hope in our hearts. May they light our way in the years to come. And please join us in singing Eifo Ori, which is number 2 in your hymnals.
Kol Nidre is not a prayer, but a chant. It is concerned with the importance of vows, oaths, and promises of human behavior.
In the 5th chapter of Ecclesiastes, the author says, "It is better not to vow at all than to vow and not fulfill." But our forebears understood the need for escape clauses in human intentions. For despite good intentions, all of us make promises we cannot keep.
Jewish tradition has established that unfulfilled promises and commitments to other people require forgiveness from those wronged. This is the cornerstone of the secular humanistic Jewish view of Yom Kippur. Human interaction is the highest form of relationship, and it is only at this level that forgiveness and interpersonal rebuilding can be undertaken.
Kol Nidre, chant of ages, chant of Israel, chant of sorrow, measuring off the throbbing heartbeats of a people bowed in anguish, crushed by tyrants, thwarted, broken, wandering ever, homeless, weary.
Generations set your motif out of trials, hopes, and yearnings, added each its variations to your theme and to your cadence. Diverse lands and diverse periods poured their soul into your music.
When we hearken with our hearts tuned, we can hear the lamentations through time's corridor resounding. We can see revealed before us heroes, martyrs, saints, and scholars, loyal, steadfast people of Israel. In the middle of page 4, we have our traditional Kol Nidre, which you don't have to sing because Greg Grice is going to sing it for us.
O Nidre, Beasere, Bekarame, Bakoname, Bekinuye, Bekinuse, Ushavuot, Honi hon sharan, shvikin shvitin, betenin ten butalin, la sharirim bala tayamim, Nidrana la Nidre, Ve'asarana la Seare, Ushavuan ha-na la Shemeot.
All personal vows we are likely to make, all personal oaths and pledges we are likely to take between this Yom Kippur and the next Yom Kippur, we publicly renounce. Let them be relinquished and abandoned null and void, neither firm nor established. Let our personal vows, pledges, and oaths be considered neither vows, nor pledges, nor oaths. Here we stand, heirs of the past and creators of the future. Let us open our eyes to wisdom with a new heart, a new spirit, and a new resolve.
Once more, Yom Kippur has come, and we strive to rid ourselves of self-pretense. We stand now between the day that was and the one that will be.
In the year gone by, what did we take? What did we give? To what were we blind? Our passion shall now be for wisdom, love and truth we shall find, justice and peace we shall embrace, and our impulse for good shall prevail.
Kol Nidre, chant of ages, chant of pain and chant of pathos, mingled with your notes of sorrow are notes of joyous exultation.
Kol Nidre, chant of the ages, chant of grief and chant of triumph, echoing this night of memories in the ears and hearts of Israel, as once again we draw together. With your plaintive chant, Kol Nidre, rise our hopes for the dawn of peace, when all hearts are purged of hatred, passions and lusts that rend asunder, so that all may stand together. May our hearts and minds be open to what this day asks of us.
May we be prepared to listen with our minds and hearts.
Thank you, Akiva, for serving as our first reader. Before we move to our instrumental version of Kol Nidre, we do 3 different versions of Kol Nidre. If the choir wants to scoot to chairs there so that they can hear, we've discovered they can't hear stuff from the sides. I mentioned during our Rosh Hashanah service that the themes for this year's talks during these holidays are carrying hidden burdens and appreciating the good, and I mentioned, or at least took the blame for selecting those themes. Whether you like them or not, here they are. For today, for better or worse, I get to talk on those themes from my own perspective, and since it's Yom Kippur, yes, we call this Kol Nidre, but it's really the opening festivities, I guess, for Yom Kippur. I just used festivities in Yom Kippur. That was weird. I guess we should talk about the atonement stuff a little, or we can leave it to tomorrow. Let's talk about Kol Nidre itself a little bit, which for amusement purposes only, on my computer, every time I typed it, my computer very helpfully corrected it to Koi Nidre. Like fish take vows, I don't know. I've talked in the past about Kol Nidre as a triumph of people over elites, and I've talked about how the popularity of the practice of reciting Kol Nidre over centuries overcame the resistance of rabbis who didn't really want people just making vows willy-nilly. Our service mentions the anxiety over atonement and sin and all of those other things, and you can find all of that stuff online. If you want to see what I said about it, I've got copies from prior years, I think. What I want to talk about is a little bit different from all of that, because I'm not so much interested in Kol Nidre, the text, as I am in what's underneath it, which is the hidden burden of regret. The anxiety over regret is baked into the high holidays, and as humanistic Jews, we don't see regret, or at least we don't talk about it, with the same fear as we find when we look at the traditional Yom Kippur liturgy. You have 18 pages. This is what's happening in an Orthodox synagogue right now. I'm just saying. The images of the Book of Life and the Book of Death and the Book of Giant Yom Kippur and the book of those in between permeate the traditional Yom Kippur liturgy. Since we're talking about hidden things, let's pull something hidden and later revealed. A poem from the Sephardic world was essentially lost for 8 centuries, tucked away in an attic, a geniza, which literally means hidden, in 11th century Cairo, and rediscovered in the late 1800s. Its title is Adon HaSlichot, literally Master of Forgiveness. The title of the poem is also its first line. Its next 2 lines are Bochen Levavot, who examines hearts, and Gole Amukot, who uncovers the depths. The refrain of the poem is Chatanu lefanecha rachem aleinu, we have sinned before you, have mercy on us. And I'm sure by now we've figured out the intended audience of the poem. There are perhaps a few thousand poems like these. Hundreds of Jewish communities over hundreds of years produced their own liturgical poems, and dedicated poets composed hundreds themselves. If you are anxious about sin, that's some serious anxiety. Especially when you realize that no one can possibly keep track of all the people they've wronged and all the different ways they've wronged them. So if we don't have that frightening image of Yom Kippur, of the Master of Forgiveness and the anxiety of atonement, what are we doing here? What's the point of the high holidays if you don't think, in the words of Rabbi Judah Hanasi, that above you there is an eye that sees and an ear that hears, with all your deeds written in a book? What's the point? After all, even the most traditional Jewish thinkers claim that it's not as though we shouldn't or can't make apologies and right wrongs all year long. And it's not such a bad practice to have, no matter who you are. The risk is, as the contemporary Jewish poet Devon Spear says, I have become a master of forgiveness. I'm always sorry. The hidden burden of regret, which we carry all the time, can weigh more and more, and we need an outlet. We need a way of feeling better, of feeling freed from the knowledge of our failures and the knowledge that there are failures we don't even know about, and failures that never occurred, but the feeling of which we just can't shake. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur offer a safety valve, some relief from the burden of shame and guilt and the knowledge of our humanity. We carry all those burdens constantly without talking about them and without thinking about them. But we don't need that valve right now, which is to say there's nothing magic about now, as opposed to, say, the season of Lent and Easter in Christianity, which in its own way helps to relieve Christians of the burdens of guilt by reassuring them of their religion's message of forgiveness and its basis. Kol Nidre doesn't let anyone off the hook, because even for traditionally religious Jews, it's about private promises. But that's what gives it some of its power for us, because it brings the private public. It brings us into community to say that we know the risks of becoming masters of forgiveness, to acknowledge that we need relief from the private burden of guilt without it turning to shame. because we all share this burden, even if we can't see it on one another's backs. Raise your hand if you got a slip of paper with the poem that I read. Okay, if you didn't get that, find somebody who did. We're about to hear Harry Appelman play an instrumental version of Kol Nidre. We've asked ourselves in our liturgy to listen with our minds and our hearts. And as we do, I invite you to consider that short two-line poem and what it says to you here tonight without knowing and not knowing whether or what we've done wrong. I'd like to invite the choir back on stage and invite up our second reader, David Abramson. And we are on the top of page 6. We began this year, as all years, with promises and good intentions for improving our lives. Too many promises have been forgotten, too many hopes not realized. Who will hear our regrets? Who will open our prison and set us free? To whom can we raise our voices?
As we accept our imperfections and confirm our hopes, we grow in ethical and moral strength. With a sense for life's potential, we move beyond finding fault to seeking new opportunities for growth.
What can we learn from the Kol Nidre? We must avoid making empty vows. We must commit ourselves to deeds rather than words. We will strip away old habits. We will be open to change. We've reached our humanistic Kol Nidre, which Greg Greisa will again sing for us.
O Nidre, Beasere, Bakarame, Bakoname, Bakinuye, Bakinuse, Ushvuot, Idanada, Udahish Tabana, Udakarimna, Vadi Asarana, Laman, Hava Utsadaka, Yahiyuka, Yamim.
Please take a moment to thank both Greg and Harry for their Kol Nidre performances tonight. We join together at the bottom of page 6. All personal vows we make, all personal oaths and pledges we may take, that are made for love and for righteousness, we affirm and accept. We began this year, as all years, with promises and good intentions for improving our lives.
Too many promises have been forgotten, too many hopes not realized. As the promises were ours, forgiveness must be ours.
As we accept our imperfections and affirm our hopes, we grow in ethical and moral strength. With a sense for life's potential, we move beyond finding fault or blame to seeking new opportunities for growth.
While we may have a modern philosophical outlook, we are not so different from our ancestors. The underlying ideas of the Kol Nidre still possess significance for us today. These are the sincere longing for a clear conscience, the release from feelings of guilt, the recognition of the sacredness of the promised word, and the desire to be absolved from vows which could not be carried out.
How many of us have fulfilled all that we have vowed? Who among us has not broken a heartfelt promise? I hereby forgive those who have hurt me, whether deliberately or by accident. As I forgive and pardon fully those who have wronged me, may those whom I have harmed in any way also forgive and pardon me. And may I not willfully repeat the wrongs I have committed in the past, and lovingly forgive myself as I forgave and was forgiven by others.
May tolerance and justice light our days. May tolerance and justice light the world.
We've talked a little bit about the traditional myth of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, right? There are 3 books, a book of life, a book of death, and a book of Beinonim, in-betweeners. And the totally good and the totally bad are immediately written into their respective books on Rosh Hashanah, and the in-betweener's fate hangs in the balance until Yom Kippur, on which time final judgments are entered. The trick is that almost everyone is an in-betweener. so that our efforts between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are meant to earn us enough merit, or at least repair enough damage, that we end up in the book of life when Yom Kippur finally concludes. Even the people who wrote this myth understood it to be exactly that, a foundational story, something that smacks of some truth rather than having factual truth. It's not so much that Yom Kippur really decides who lives and who dies. It's instead that Yom Kippur provides an opportunity to recognize that the world, and sometimes our lives, are often made worse by doing things that harm others. So the point of confessional texts like the one that we're about to read, vidui means acknowledgement or confession, is not that we imagine that if we say enough sorries and admit enough fault that we'll survive the next year, being literally inscribed in a book of life. The point is to open our eyes to what we all may have done, the ways we have done wrong in the world. The point is to make it so that we walk away from this holiday aware of what we can do and its effects, so that we're more reflective and more ethical people in the year to come. And so we are at the top of page 8. Perhaps part of the blame falls on me, because I kept silent, uttered no cry. Fear froze my heart and confused my mind, and I did not resist the lie.
My clear voice was choked and dumb, and I allowed them, without protest, to outrage and violate what was dearest to me, holiest.
Cowardice came down and walked the earth. We hid our true feelings from one another.
We did
not hear the cry of a friend, and our own cry we often had to smother. Black suspicion like the plague murdered faith and left hearts cold. Courage was branded treason. Betrayal was called heroic, bold.
The courts were ordered what verdicts to give. The trials were secret, the results never in doubt. Light hung its head in shame, waiting that at least one man should cry out.
No, but no one cried. Before he formed the word, could articulate, his head was broken and his tongue torn out. Only one thing was left, the patience to wait. To wait that justice might prevail one day. Perhaps that was part of my blame, that I kept silent, did not speak, as though I had nothing to say. And just the note, because of the imagery, that Binim Heller, the author of this poem, was influenced by the execution of Soviet writers in 1952, so we're getting a kind of response to that. The choir will lead us in B'makom, which is number 12 in your hymnal section.
I have seen violence scar the face of our planet.
Yet I did not speak.
I have heard cries of hungry children.
Yet I did not speak.
I have seen poverty and diseases.
Yet I did not speak.
I have witnessed the pain and suffering of others.
Yet I did not speak.
I have wanted to scream out in rage against injustice.
Yet I did not speak.
I too have been in pain.
Yet I did not speak.
I have wanted to laugh with joy.
yet I did not speak.
I have wanted to share words of love,
Yet I did not speak.
Yet there were times of outrage, pain, and joy
When I did speak.
May I always have the courage to speak what must be spoken.
May we always have the courage to speak what must be spoken. Deep in the center of this holiday is the concept of commitment, individual and communal. If the year does not begin fresh with hope and clean of wrongdoing, then we suffer and the community suffers. But the choice is ours. It is not foreordained. The world of possibilities is born again each year. Perhaps all of us in all our relationships to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to our society need to reevaluate our sense of commitment. We also need to reevaluate society's commitment to us. Perhaps this symbolizes the true meaning of Yom Kippur for us, to assume responsibility for all that we want and all that we are.
In whom can we place our belief? Ourselves. In whom can we set the soul aglow? Ourselves. Who has the power to assuage guilt and to end the reasons for guilt? We do. We ourselves. We of human heart and spirit.
To whom should we give our first applause? In whose inner being lies the power to exalt our humanness? Let us give ourselves the first applause. Let us reach into our inner selves and find that which we call righteousness. For it is not found in the heavens or beyond the mountain. It is found here inside our inner human depths. It waits there for us to seek it out.
Can we give an accounting of our souls? Do we dare to ourselves? What will we find in the recesses of our mind, in the echoes of our past?
We have the power and the choice to narrow the abyss between the thought of good and the deed of good. Can we find the will? We can and we shall. For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference, for each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without justice or cause, for each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others.
We forgive each other and ourselves. We begin again in love.
For the selfishness that sets us apart and alone, for falling short of admonitions of the Spirit, for losing sight of our unity.
For those and for so many acts both evident and subtle that have fueled the illusion of separateness. We forgive each other and ourselves. We begin again in love. Thank you, David, for coming up and reading for us, particularly on just a little bit of short notice. I had to promise there was no Hebrew. I didn't have to promise, but I did promise there was no Hebrew. There wasn't. So maybe the choir wants to step down one more time. I promise this is your last up and down the steps before we're done. I mentioned earlier that I picked the themes for this year's talks and that we'd be talking about carrying hidden burdens and appreciating the good, and we already talked about hidden burdens and being who we are, which is to say Jews and people close to Jews in a room together on Yom Kippur. We've talked about guilt. So I guess we have to appreciate the good now. Has there ever been less enthusiastic an appreciation of the good than saying, I guess we have to appreciate the good now? To be fair, it's getting just a little late. Jewish culture has a traditional tool for appreciating the good. They're called blessings. That's what all those lines that start with Baruch are about. They're expressions of gratitude for good that we've received. Within some forms of Jewish practice, gratitude is expressed even for the deaths of loved ones, since the point of that blessing is not actually to mourn the loss, but instead to express thanks for a deity who decides who lives and who dies. This is, of course, not a blessing most humanistic Jews are particularly fond of, and that points out something important. Demanding that people appreciate the good in things that are not good for them is harmful. We're about to enter our memorial service for tonight, and as most memorial services do, it talks about appreciating the good in our memories of others. We have many bits of music and poetry and prose that include themes honoring those who have come before us. But not every memory is good, and not every person we remember is someone we remember for good. When we talk about acknowledging the good, it is worth remembering that the processes that happen on the high holidays, whether it's the process of asking for and receiving forgiveness, or the work of memory, or simply assessing the year that came before, it is worth remembering that these processes can be turned to harm. And so as we move into our section on memory, the challenge is this: finding balance. And that's going to be different for each of us between the good and the bad that we receive from generations past. It's left to us to figure out how we bless, how we thank, what and whom we need to, and how we withhold thanks from those we ought not bless, because doing so is harmful. We will soon light memorial candles on stage, and with any luck, they will remain lit. Congregation Shar Zahav, an LGBTQIA+ congregation in the San Francisco area, for those wondering, Shar Zahav means Golden Gate, provides this blessing in their congregational siddur, their liturgy for friends, partners, parents, and family. Peace descends in the warmth of candles' glow, and I reach out hands to bless you, body and soul. I bless you for being in my life. I bless you in all the things you do. I bless you with joy and health and truth. I bless you just for being you. We stand at the end of the chain of memory. After us, new links in the chain will be forged, locked into ours, and I hope that each of us will be links in the chain that someone looking back will find good enough to bless our memories and to appreciate the good we will leave behind us. We're in the middle of page 12 in our Nizkor section, and I'd like to call up our final reader, Marty David. Zachor means remember. We are condemned to remember. It is the very nature of the human condition. Because we remember, we have culture. Because we remember, we have tradition. Because we remember, we are able to learn from our past. Even if we wanted to stop remembering, it would insist on intruding. We cannot be the creatures of our evolutionary past who lived from moment to moment without the assault of conscious memory. Our past stays with us vividly. We must learn how to live with it. And if the choir wants to come back up, they're welcome to do so. Not everyone hits their prompts 100% of the time. Like me. The Yizkor service is a customary part of many Jewish holidays. It's a customary part of 4 Jewish holidays. I don't know if you call that many. The word itself is derived from the beginning lines of a prayer, Yizkor Elohim Nishmat, may God remember the soul of. As humanistic Jews, it makes more sense to refer to this important part of our tradition as Nizkor, let us remember.
It is not death I fear, but dying.
May strength and courage be mine.
It is not dying I fear, but pain.
May strength and courage be mine.
It is not leaving I fear, but being left behind.
May strength and courage be mine.
It is not separation I fear, but saying goodbye.
May strength and courage be mine. Each of us remembers our traditions in our own way. It is through our actions today that we build our own legacy. Our traditions will be preserved and passed on to new generations. Their memories will be shaped by our present. We are children of the past. We are parents of the future. If we dwell too much on the past, we shall neglect the future. but we cannot only look forward, or we will forget the lessons of history. We are always the bridge between the past and the future. We stretch between the old and the new. We do not betray the future by ignoring our roots. We pay tribute to both. We're going to move past the song and we'll be lighting candles for various purposes of memory. We light this candle in memory of those killed in the Holocaust. Though they are silent, our ancestors speak with our voices. Though their hands are still, they labor through us. They live in us, in our faces and our bodies, in the energy that moves our muscles and in our thoughts. They survive in our memories. It is good to have the gift of remembrance, to transmit the story of our people from generation to generation.
There are things in Jewish history too terrible to be believed, but not too terrible to have happened. Let us honor the martyrs of the Holocaust in Europe and of all other Holocausts unleashed on the innocent of this world. In their memory, we affirm our commitment to freedom and peace.
It's become widespread practice in American synagogues to include a martyrology, a litany commemorating those who died simply for being Jews, in Yom Kippur memorial services. The poem that follows, The Jewish Ghetto of Łódź, was written by one of Machar's earliest members, Harold Black, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. The poem's imagery is difficult, and today I have opted not to read aloud the portion of the poem marked Leader. It is powerful, but includes themes that can be difficult. Instead, let's take a silent moment to remember and honor the martyrs of the Jewish people who died for no reason other than that they had some link to our people during the Holocaust and other dark moments of our history. We'll continue in the middle of page 14 with the verse marked Reader.
If you choose to live, there is music to hide the rumbling of your empty stomach. Bronislava plays her violin in the House of Culture. In Soup Kitchen number 2, Stajman the tenor sings, or you can trade on the black market your last tablecloth or sheet for a loaf of bread.
But there are times when you do not choose. A notice is tacked to your door. Fate has chosen you to ride the train. We will remember to forget is a crime against memory. We light the second candle for peace in the world. We remember lives lost in strife and yearn for a day when the words ring true, Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yilmadu od milchama. Our choir will lead singing of that song while I go ahead and light the second memorial candle.
We're going to sing this song as a band, but it's a little confusing, so please join with us if you want at your own risk. Yo lisa goy el goy herev, lo yilmadu od milchama, lo yisa goy el goy herev, lo yilmadu od milchama, lo yisa goy el goy herev, lo yilmadu od milchama, lo yisa
Together on the middle of page 15. Then nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. May Israel live in peace. May all the world know peace.
I am a member of the world family. I am related to those who stand next to me, by the air we breathe, by the light we share, the hope we have for a better world.
I have a responsibility to give, to receive, to be open, tolerant, free. I have inherited this world from those who have lived here before. I occupy space and time for a few short years. I hold this world in trust for those who will follow.
My life with others can fashion this world toward peace other than strife, hope rather than despair, freedom rather than slavery.
I, with those about me, can make common humanity a living thing. I pledge my willing spirit to this thought. We will do this together. We're going to move past that song to our third candle, remembering our loved ones. We light the third candle to remember our more personal losses. We are all victims of loss. Some of us have wept. Some of us now weep. Some of us will weep tomorrow. Today we remember those who are no longer living. In tribute to them, we live wisely, courageously, and usefully.
Each of us is more than an individual. We are members of a living people. Our lives stretch back into the past and reach forward into the future. As we dream of tomorrow, we do not forget our yesterdays. We remember our loved ones who have died. So long as we live and remember, they too shall live.
Please stand for a moment of silence as we remember those we carry in our hearts. Zecher Tzadikim Livracha. May the memory of good people be a blessing for us. May the memory of those we loved in life sweeten our thoughts and our deeds. May the grace of their presence reach out to touch our hearts and inspire our days. Please be seated. From generation to generation, Lador Vador, we are linked in time to the traditions of our people, both in community and innovation. We celebrate the cycle of nature, the chain of tradition, the lessons of our ancestors, the gift of hope, and the joy and preciousness of life. The days pass, a year goes by, but the melody remains. The days pass, a year goes by, but the love remains. The days pass, a year goes by, but the friendship remains.
The history of the Jewish people is long, filled with accounts of menace and isolation, emphasizing our need for connection and peoplehood. We cling to each other for affirmation and mutual support. Even in good times, we remember past dangers and find comfort in those who share our memories of survival.
But in this world, all people are equal in adversity. We are all threatened by common dangers: nuclear holocaust, hunger, disease, persecution, loneliness.
Even when the suffering of Jews becomes a memory, we must honor the lessons we have learned through our historical experience of suffering by caring for those who still suffer.
We believe in the future of the Jewish people. We believe in the future of humankind.
We see the Jewish people as our family, our Jewishness as our home.
We're going to join together very briefly on singing Machar with the lead of the choir, which is number 16 in your hymnal section. Machar is an Israeli song written by Naomi Shemer, and it means tomorrow in Hebrew. And it is, I'm told, entirely a coincidence that there is a song called Machar and a congregation called Machar. Machar, the song, was originally written in Hebrew, but is modern Hebrew and doesn't necessarily glide off the tongue of non-Hebrew speakers. But because we hope to approach the future, to approach tomorrow with hope, we continue to sing the song, maybe a little bit in translation too. It's that time again. Announcements. I'm not giving the announcements. Machar's president, Elaine Dances, will provide the announcements. You weren't expecting, but we're almost done.
I want to say thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you, Rabbi, for the wonderful service that we were part of. I also want to thank you, volunteers. Without volunteers, we wouldn't have service today. And I'm going to read list of the volunteers in alphabetic order, but unfortunately, Nadine Wetstein, she's the last one on the list, but she's the first one to organize and recruit volunteers and do all the work. So I just want to acknowledge Nadine and the first on the list. So Jeremy already introduced our choir, but I can do it again. So our pianist, Harry Appelman. Thank you, Harry. Vocal soloist, Greg Grisa. Choir, Keith Campbell-Rosen, Misha Clive, Greg Grisa, Joy Markowitz, Miriam Markowitz, Joanna Pratt, and Joyce Rosenthal. I know they spent a lot of time practicing and getting ready for the performance today, and thank you so much for a great job. Security preparation, Dunya Hedge. Readers, David Abramson, Marty David, and Akiva Lieberman. And putting it all together, team for the Nidre service was David Barron, Marina Breutman, Elaine Dances, Marty David, Will David, Michael Friedman, Amy Kotkin, Larry Lawrence, Mike Radosh, Jack Schwartz, and of course Nadine Wetstein. Thank you so much for volunteers. And that's how many volunteers to take to organize this event. So thank you again. So we'll see you tomorrow morning. At 9:30 we have Children's and Family Service. At 10:30 we have main service. Childcare will be provided if anybody is interested to have their children in childcare. So thank you very much. And if anybody is fasting, which Barry and I we're going to be fasting, right? Have an easy fast. Thank you, everybody.
And since we've got just a slight break, not today, I know this is Sunday, next Sunday, October 1st, is our Sukkot celebration. Adults and kids of all ages are welcome to come. We'll be doing it a little bit jointly with Kehila Chadasha, and it's for if you're a JCS parent, it is technically an official JCS event, using what little Jewish guilt power I have access to say, it's a school day. It's a school day.
We see the Jewish people as our family, our Jewishness as our home.
We see humankind as our family, and the whole world as our home.
As we enter the new year, we carry with us wishes of peace, health, and the absence of suffering for all.
Lashana Tova Umatuka. Shana Tova Umatuka. A good and sweet year. And our choir will lead us in singing our final song, Bashana, which is number 9. Together, just at the very bottom after that song. May we go in peace until we meet again. And I hope we'll meet some of you tomorrow morning for Yom Kippur. Again, the only guilt I have. It's Yom Kippur tomorrow. You should feel bad for something, I guess. We'll see some folks tomorrow, and we'll see some folks at other times. Shana Tova.